Bruce, you must have something really good too.
Of course I do. It's Bruce Danielson, and I guess I'm here to entertain you too.
All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our, let's see here, January 19, Sioux Falls City Council meeting. Thanks for joining us. We got a couple joining us remotely tonight via phone, a couple of our counselors, as well as several here in person. So we'll take roll by reading our roll, please. Tom.
Council members Erickson, Jensen. Here. Kiley.
Here.
Neitzert.
Here.
Selberg. Here. Sale.
Here.
Starr.
Here.
Brecky.
Here.
All right, Councilors Kiley and Brecky will be joining us remotely tonight. With us to give our invocation, and he's a frequent flyer here, and we always appreciate you being here, Dr. Ron Towningham with Empire Baptist Temple. And we'd ask that you rise for his invocation tonight and then stay standing for our Pledge of Allegiance.
Well, I want to tell you all how much I appreciate you. I just wonder, was there anybody here that's on the council that was elected after all this stuff got in the air? Or did you put
Yeah, right there.
okay, the rest of you put your name in knowing nothing that you'd deal with. And so thank you for just staying in there and handling it. The city population, no matter what we think, we operate with your help. Our Father, thank you tonight for the privilege of being here. Thank you for our city council. Thank you for their families and all the things involved that a lot of the average citizen does not stop and think his way through to give themselves in the service of a city. And being the greatest city in the world, as far as I'm concerned, I pray that you'd bless them in a special way. Give them guidance in all the decisions they have to make. Watch over them, very careful. Put the hedge you put around Job around them. And again, bless our city and continue to bless it through our city council tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you, Dr. Tottingham, for being back here again tonight. We'll move on to item 4, which is our consent agenda. Any changes or motions on that?
Move approval. Second, Jensen.
Motion by Selberg, second by Jensen to approve that item. Any discussion here, council? All right, hearing none, let's take a vote on that, please.
Council members Jensen. Yes. Kiley.
Yes.
Neitzert.
Yes.
Selberg. Yes. Sale.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Brecky.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. We'll move on to item 20, our regular agenda. Look for a motion there.
Move approval. Second, Jensen.
Motion by Selberg, seconded by Jensen to approve the regular agenda. Any discussion there? All right, hearing none, we'll take a vote on that, please.
Council members Jensen. Yes. Kiley.
Yes.
Neitzert.
Yes.
Selberg. Yes. Sale.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Brecky.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Before we continue on with our regular agenda, I'd just like to review public input for agenda items. For regular agenda items, comments will be limited to 3 minutes unless the item is being presented for final adoption, in which case public input is limited to 5 minutes. For all regular agenda items, comments are limited to the agenda item under consideration only. During general public input portion at the end of our meeting, comments will be no more than 3 minutes per person, and comments are limited to topics which do not involve agenda items appearing earlier in the agenda, as comments will have already been received for those items. So we'll move on with our next item, please, Tom.
Item 21, new 2021 retail wine and cider license and new 2020-21 retail malt beverage South Dakota farm wine license, requesting off-sale use only for Dollar Store, 10th Street, 1503 East 10th Street, CUP not required. Item 22, new 2020-21 retail malt beverage South Dakota farm wine license for Bauer Enterprises LLC, 4 Hills, 2800 East Marson Drive, CUP not required. pending permit issuance and final inspections per building services. Item 23, request to add video lottery terminals with the new 2020-21 retail malt beverage South Dakota farm wine license for Bauer Enterprises LLC, 4 Hills, 2800 East Marson Drive, pending permit issuance and final inspections per building services. Item 24, new 2020-21 retail malt beverage South Dakota farm wine license for Trevetti Oil LLC, Coda Corner, 900 North Sycamore Avenue, with conditional use permit 8325-2018, being approved on May 3rd, 2018, pending change in use permit for building services. Item 25, request to add video lottery terminals with the new 2020-21 retail malt beverage South Dakota farm wine license for Trevetti Oil LLC, Coda Corner, 900 North Sycamore Avenue, pending change in use permit for building services. Item 26, new 2020-21 retail malt beverage South Dakota farm wine license for the Click Sports Bar and Grill LLC, 114 North Indiana Avenue, with conditional use permit 13338-2020, being approved on December 2nd, 2020, pending final inspection per health. Item 27, request to add video lottery terminals with the new 2020-21 retail malt beverage South Dakota farm wine license for the Click Sports Bar and Grill LLC, 114 North Indiana Avenue. Item 28, new 2021 retail wine and cider license and new 2020-21 retail malt beverage South Dakota farm wine license for La Isla del Encanto LLC, La India Tena Puerto Rican Restaurant, 1309 East Benson Road, CUP not required. Item 29, transfer of 2021 retail liquor license from the Square on Main LLC, 360 South Main Avenue, to the Square on Main LLC, 340 South Main Avenue, CUP not required. Item 30, request to add video lottery terminals with the 2020-21 retail malt beverage South Dakota farm wine license for Hungry's Restaurant Incorporated, Marlin's Roadhouse Grill, 3850 North Cliff Avenue. Item 31, request to add video lottery terminals with the 2020-21 retail malt beverage South Dakota farm wine license for Bonus Round Bar, 803 South Cliff. Item 32, request to add video lottery terminals with the 2020-21 retail malt beverage South Dakota farm wine license for Bonus Round Bar, 127 West 10th Street. Item 33, special one-day wine license for Wine Time on Main LLC to be operated at Washington Square, 8th floor, 350 South Main Avenue for a wine tasting on January 26, 2021.
Good evening, Jamie.
Good evening. Jamie Palmer here with licensing. I'm here to answer any questions that you have on items 21 through 33. And I will also have to request a motion to withdraw items 22 and 23 due to the fact that they must go before Planning Commission first. So.
Got it. Thanks, Jamie. Anyone from the public who would like to speak to any of these items tonight? Good evening.
This is Sierra Broussard. Item number 26 is very disturbing. The person that the licensure is going to be under is a victim of under a pimp. And the guy that is going to be running this bar that is in this building is under investigation for human trafficking by labor. I had spoke to the applicant and told her I was against this because he's using her, the victim, to put it under her name because he is a felon. I'm not going to get into his felonies with y'all. So he can run this brothel house. I'm going to remind you that the individual that is going to be running this bar is under investigation with the Street Crimes Unit. It is absolutely very disturbing when we have African Americans using the white people to place stuff underneath their names because they can't to run illegal activity. He also has another business of a car wash business that prostitutes are flipping on him as of right now as we speak. This is going to be more for the police to add on to their investigation, and this would be a high crime area and a target area with the police, and I will make sure that the police is on him more than what they are on him for. This is not Chicago, Illinois. She doesn't know better because that's her pimp, and that's the victim.
Thank you. Anyone else here to speak on any of these items tonight? All right, Council, do you have any questions for Jamie on any of the items here?
I'd move to withdraw items 22 and 23, Night Cert.
Second, Star.
All right, motion by Nitzert, seconded by Starr to withdraw 22 and 23. Any discussion there? All right, hearing none, let's take a vote on that motion, please.
Council members Jensen,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg, Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Brecky.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Now I'd be looking for a motion to approve item 21 and then 22 to 33, please.
Mr. Mayor,
Counselor Starr.
I would move to approve items 21 and then 26 through 33 so that we can take a look at 24 and 25, please.
All right, do we have a second for that?
Second, Brecky.
All right. Any discussion on that motion? None? All right. Let's take a vote on that then, please.
Council members Jensen,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg, Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Brecky.
Yes.
All right, those items pass 7-0. Now I'd look for a motion on 24 and 25. And then we'll get into discussion on those.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve items number 24 and number 25.
Second, Jensen.
All right, motion by Counselor Sale, second by Counselor Jensen. Discussion, Counselor Starr?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I had one question for Jamie, if I could. I apologize for waiting, but I wanted to do it in this order. One of the questions that I had from someone in the neighborhood was looking at the distance from this applicant's location to Children's Home Society, and then, well, Washington will definitely be well out of the 300 feet, but
Okay, this applicant was required to go through a conditional use permit, and as you can see, it was back in May 3rd of 2018. I went back and looked at some of the documents on that, and it doesn't say an exact distance, but it does say it's over 300 feet between the building and when he initially got approved for that conditional use permit. So, and again, it didn't say an exact, but it said it was over 300 feet.
and this may be more as a follow-up, but how long do we honor conditional use permits once they're approved? And it's probably a planning question.
Jason Bieber with Planning and Development Services. Conditional use permits, specifically for on-sale alcohol, we look at those, essentially the use, and it's 500 feet for the specific use. So they were within the 500 feet of the Children's Home Society. As long as that applicant doesn't transfer it or do a new one, the conditional use then would go with the property. And so they can then go, because it was after Shea Places in 2014, so.
Do we measure from property line? How does that measurement work?
Yep.
We had one, last week I think we looked at that was kind of in that.
Separation distances are measured all the same for any of the alcohol uses, and they're measured from the outside wall of the tenant space. So in this specific case, it'd be the outside wall of the gas station to the property line of the sensitive land use. So it'd be the outside wall of this gas station to the Children's Home Society property line.
Okay, thank you. And then I just had a question for the applicant.
All right, is the applicant here? Good evening, sir. Come on up.
Akhilesh Trivedi with Coda Corner.
Can you pull the mics down just a hair? There you go. Thank you.
Sorry.
Good evening. I guess one of my questions were, when you withdrew this back in 18, what are you doing differently now with the setup for the building, or are there any things different? Because there wasn't, at the time, there was a lot of neighborhood concern about a video lottery location in this location. And I know when I talked to Jamie last week, and as part of this application, she said that you have made some other changes to make the plan a little bit better. So just give me an idea roughly of what's different from 18, or from 2018 to today with this application.
Sure. So what happened is in the building where in 2018, what I wanted to do is the space was a little bit, smaller. And then I just withdrew the idea. I'm like, you know what, not right now, maybe sometimes in the future, well, if we want to do it again, we'll just go ahead and do it. So then finally, I found the appropriate space into the building, into the premises, and I thought this is the appropriate space for whatever I want to do. And it's working out pretty good. I went to the city building, whatever department, and I showed them, what I want to do in this space. They say, yeah, just put everything, right in the scale, and we look at it, and then, yeah, you should be okay. I'm like, okay, then it works for me.
Thank you.
All right. Any other discussion on these two items? Counselor Starr?
Yep. Two things concern me is that I think it is with close to that 500 feet with the sensitive use with Children's Home Society being just across the street. And then I'm concerned that the plan has changed considerably from when the conditional use permit was gone through the first time. So for me, it's difficult to support that with, when the considerable changes have been made from the time when the conditional use permit was made. So I'm going to be voting against both of these, 24 and 25.
All right, any other discussion? Counselor Neitzer?
I vaguely remember watching this on the Planning Commission, but I don't remember the details. Could somebody just tell me what was approved at the time and what are we changing to? Are they expanding the types of alcohol that'll be sold and adding video lottery terminals? What's the before and after?
Well, from a land use perspective, we don't regulate video lotteries, so we regulate on-sale alcohol, which this would have been. I believe the applicant, this is 3 years ago, so the applicant was going to take a portion of the existing gas station and do a video lottery in there, which you've seen some other ones do that. I believe that's still the plan. I just think he maybe is going to utilize a little bit more space within that gas station.
What was the conditional use for at the time?
On-sale
Just
alcohol.
on-sale alcohol?
Yep, to be able to serve, because you can't have video lottery unless you get a beer and
Yeah,
wine
yeah.
license. We can't give them a beer and wine license until they get that conditional use because of the location to sensitive land uses. So we have to have that public hearing.
What is this pending change in use permit per building services? What is
They
that?
would have to go through the building permit process to allow, more than one use essentially, so. Because they're gonna have
By
a
the
gas
addition of
station and then they'll have the video lottery establishment, so.
Okay. Okay, very good, thanks.
All right, any other discussion on these two items?
If I could, Mr.
Counselor
Mayor,
Starr?
I want to clean up my objection so that I do this correctly. I have no objection to the applicant as a suitable person. I have a problem with it being a suitable location. From the rear of the building, it's also next to, if it was next to single-family homes, it would be a problem, but because it's multifamily, it doesn't make it a suitable location. And I think if you live in a townhome or a multi-housing unit, you still have should have the same expectations of both privacy and all of the concerns. So my objection is that it's not a suitable location for the video lottery.
All right, any other, Jamie, did you want to speak to that?
I just want to add a couple of things. This business currently does have an off-sale license for the gas station. And from previous, in 2018, like Jason had said, that they only do the conditional use permit for on-sale alcohol. So the whole building at that one time, just like now, he's requesting to be on sale. So the request for the on-sale that he would have had to go through the conditional use permit has not changed. He, at that time, wanted the whole building to be on sale, and he does at this time as well. So that's how it will be licensed. So I just wanted to add that.
Thank you, Jamie. Any other discussion on this item, council? All right, let's take a vote on it, please.
Council members Jensen,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Neitzer,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
No.
Brecky,
Yes.
All right, that item passes 6-1. Next item, please.
Item 34, first reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property located south of West 22nd Street and west of South Gill Avenue from the AG Agriculture District to the RS Single Family Residential Suburban District, number 13487-2020, and amending the official zoning map of the city of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 5-0. Recommendation, set a date of second reading for Tuesday, February 2nd, 2021. Private applicant, Ben Parsley.
The applicant owner here is Benjamin Parsley. It's located south of West 22nd Street and west of South Gill Avenue. It's about an acre in size. The purpose of this rezoning is the applicant is looking at splitting this existing 1 acre lot into 3 lots. There'll be an existing house that's on 22nd Street, and then on the south side of the lot, he's looking at constructing 2 additional houses that will front 23rd Street.
All right, thanks, Jason. Anyone from the public who would like to speak to this item tonight? Council, you got any questions for Jason on this one?
Move approval?
Second, Jensen.
All right, motion by Selberg, second by Jansen. That's to set a date of second reading for Tuesday, February 2. Any discussion here? All right, let's take a vote, please.
Council members Jensen,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Brecky.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Item 35.
Item 35, first reading, an ordinance of the city of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning a portion of property located south of West 54th Street and north and west of Northview Avenue from the C4 Commercial Regional District to the I-1 Light Industrial District, number 13507-2020, and amending the official zoning map of the city of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 5-0. Recommendation, set a date of second reading for Tuesday, February 2nd, 2021. Private applicant, Jansmic Land Investments, LLC, Dale Jans.
The applicant here is Dale Jans, the owner of Jansmic Land Investments, LLC. It's located at the southwest corner of West 54th Street North and Northview Avenue. It's about 28.4 acres in size. The purpose of this rezoning is they're looking at developing some future light industrial uses on the lots.
All right, thanks, Jason. Anyone from the public here to speak on this one tonight? All right, councilors, do you have any questions for Jason on this item?
Move to set the date of the second reading for Tuesday, February 2nd, 2021.
Second.
All right, motion by Nitzert, second by Jansen on that. Any discussion on that motion? All right, let's take a vote on it, please.
Council members Jensen.
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Brecky.
Yes.
That passes 7-0. Next item.
Item 36, first reading, an ordinance of the city of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning a portion of property located south of West 69th Street and east of South Dublin Avenue from the RD1 Residential Twin Home Duplex Residential Suburban District to the RD2 Townhome Residential Suburban District, number 13537-2020, and amending the official zoning map of the city of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 5-0. Recommendation, set a date of second reading for Tuesday, February 2nd, 2021. Private applicant, Signature Companies, LLC, Clint Ackerman.
The applicant and owner here is Clint Ackerman. It's located south of West 69th Street and west of South Sundowner Avenue. It's about 17.5 acres in size. The purpose of this rezoning is the applicant is looking at constructing some 3- and 4-plexes on the existing lots.
Thanks, Jason. Anyone from the public who would like to speak to this item here? Council, do you have any questions for Jason on this?
Move approval?
Second, Jensen.
All right, motion by Selberg, seconded by Jansen to set a date of second reading for Tuesday, February 2. Any discussion here? All right, let's take a vote. Tom?
Council members Jensen.
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Brecky.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Item 37.
Item 37, first reading, an ordinance of the city of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property located at 3320 West 4th Avenue from the RS Single Family Residential Suburban District to the RD2 Townhome Residential Suburban District, number 13518-2020, and amending the official zoning map of the city of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 5-0 with the following condition, limited to NF2 form. Recommendation, set a date of second reading for Tuesday, February 2nd, 2021. Private applicant, Lifescape, Richard DeSanto.
The applicant
One
here.
second here, Jason. Go
Mr.
ahead.
Mayor, I'll be recusing myself on this item.
All right, you are recused. Counselor Selberg is recusing himself for this item. Jason, go ahead.
The applicant here is Lifescape. The owner is Luella Vermillion. It's located at 3320 North 4th Avenue. It's It's about 0.69 acres in size. The purpose of this rezoning is Lifescape is looking at constructing a community residential home on the lot, and that would have 8 bedrooms and then some common space. We did have some concerns from the neighbors, not on this proposed use, but the possibility of doing townhomes or some other multifamily on this lot. So then that is the reason why the Planning Commission put a recommendation and a restriction on there to only allow NF2, which would only be the community residential home. And that would for sure keep this lot as just what Lifescape's using it for. So.
Got it. Thanks, Jason. Anyone from the public who would like to speak to this item here? Council, do you have any questions for Jason? I'd look for a motion, set a date of second reading for Tuesday, February 2.
So moved, Nitzert.
Second, Jensen.
All right, motion by Nitzert, seconded by Jensen. Any discussion here, council? All right, we'll take a vote on it, please.
Council members Jensen,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Star,
Yes.
Brecky.
Yes.
All right, that passes 6-0. Councilor Jensen, you want to grab Councilor Selberg? There he is. Move on to item 38, please.
Item 38, first reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending Section 110 licenses, subchapter licenses issued by Planning and Development Services. Planning Commission recommends approval 5-0. Recommendation, set a date of second reading for Tuesday, February 2nd, 2021. Sponsor is the mayor.
This is the first of our 3 agenda items on ordinance changes. The first one here is pretty simple. We issue sign contractor licenses. Currently, we do it every year. Every other trade that we do within our department, mechanical, plumbing, electrical, those are all done every 2 years. So we're just trying to get our sign contractor licensing on that same cycle and make everything consistent.
Thanks, Jason. Anyone from the public who wishes to speak to this one tonight? All right, Councilor, do you have any questions here? Then I'd look for a motion
Mayor.
to set a date of second reading for Tuesday, February 2. Before we get that, Councilor Starr, go ahead.
Absolutely. Jason, what are we doing by removing the requirement of a sticker on the sign or a way to number the sign so you know who the manufacturer is or the,
Yep.
I mean, because that's basically the change, isn't it?
Well, we'll get to that one. That's actually the next agenda item. So
I apologize.
you're okay.
I'm one ahead for once.
All right.
I would move to approve, or set a date of second reading.
Second, Nitzert.
All right, motion by Starr, seconded by Nitzert on that. Any discussion, council? All right, let's take a vote, please.
Council members Jensen,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale, Star,
Yes.
Brecky.
Yes.
That passes 7-0. Item 39, please.
Item 39, first reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending Section 155, signs and outdoor advertising, application for permit. The Planning Commission recommends approval 5-0. Recommendation, set a date of second reading for Tuesday, February 2nd, 2021. Sponsor is the mayor.
So this one, as Councilmember Starr indicated, we have been requiring these little tiny stickers about this big to be placed on signs that can be 30 feet in the air that you can't see anyways. So with how we've gone to everything online, what we do now is obviously issue permits to them online, and then we go out there and conduct an inspection and get a picture of it and then attach that to the permit. So there's really no point for these stickers anymore. So they kind of just a waste of time and you can't see them anyway, so.
All right, thanks, Jason. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item? All right, councilors, do you have any questions for Jason on this one? All right, look for a motion to set a date of second reading for Tuesday, February 2.
Second, Jensen.
All right, motion by Selberg, seconded by Jensen on that. Any discussion here, council? All right, we will vote, please.
Council members Jensen,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg, Sale,
Yes.
Star,
Yes.
Brecky.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Item 40.
Item 40, first reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by amending Chapter 160 zoning, subchapters 160.005, 160.021, 160.134, 160.444, 160.154, 160.164, 160.222, 160.316, 160.404, 160.444, 160.485, 160.488, 160.517, 160.518, 160.550, 160.551, 160.572, 160.576, and 160.670. Planning Commission recommends approval 5-0. Recommendation set a date of second reading for Tuesday, February 2nd, 2021. Sponsor is the mayor.
Can you read that back again?
That was impressive.
Go ahead, Jason.
So these are our Shade Places zoning ordinance amendments that we're proposing tonight, kind of the meat of our presentation here. As you know, we like to review challenges and opportunities within this document that was approved in 2014. And we like to update it every 12 to 18 months. Where we get those updates from are suggestions. We have stakeholder feedback. We have developers, citizens that have questions, or maybe they don't understand why this is the way it is. And then we also, as we're utilizing the Shade Places zoning ordinance, we obviously get recommendations from internal staff that this isn't functioning the way it's supposed to function. And so we really keep track of those. And then after about every 12 to 18 months, we like to bring them forward to the city council for changes to that living document. And these are the same ones that we presented to you guys at an informational meeting on November 3rd of 2020. So the first couple here is just our general housekeeping type things. There's a typo in the manufactured residential housing. We're changing shape Sioux Falls 2035 comprehensive plan just to the comprehensive plan, so we don't have to update it every 5 years. We're exempting water towers from fall down distances. As you know, plenty of water towers are located within residential areas. If a water tower falls down, that's probably the least of your worries. It's probably the 9 million gallons of water that are coming out the houses. We had an item that was actually published wrong on our online publishing from a previous ordinance change, so we're just correcting that. And then one last one is we're removing business and having it read 10 days in advance, and that's to mirror state law. And we also have all of our other sections for our public notices are all 10 days. For some reason, just this one said 10 business days. So these are kind of our more significant changes that we're working on. One of the things we want to add is what we call vinyl graphics. As you can see, this is a picture of one that's there. Specifically in the downtown area, we feel like this could be beneficial for realtors and developers who are trying to lease or sell their buildings. It gets rid of some of those large 4x8 signs that you have in the pedestrian walkway. So we just feel like this is another option for them to do. We had a suggestion from a developer about, hey, we allow twin homes side by side. Why not allow a twin home but front to back to actually have that common wall as the rear yard? So that's something we're proposing, to allow them to have a 0-foot setback on that party wall if it is front to back, similar to this picture here. There was a kind of a typo or a misuse in the RT2 zoning district. As you know, that allows us to be able to redevelop some of these core lots, smaller lots within the city. For some reason, it required a buffer yard for anything, for a twin home, or excuse me, a duplex or less. If you do this out in the suburban area, a twin home or duplex doesn't require a buffer yard, so it was just making it more difficult for us to develop some of these infill lots. Anything over those 2 units, though, would still require that buffer yard. We did have a portion of this, so in the BCF1, if you're adjacent to single family and twin homes, you're required to do a little bit more with your building to make it fit in with those residential uses. That's requirement is the kind of that brick siding, pitched roof, and different things like that. For some reason, daycares were excluded from that. It was pulled out of it. So we still want daycares to have more of that residential look when they are in a residential neighborhood. So we would be adding these requirements to daycares also, similar to offices and other uses. This is one of our biggest ones that we thought maybe we would have some issues with or have to do a little bit of work with the Home Builders Association. What we're proposing is to require actually front yard trees. With the tornado we've had emerald ash borer, we had the ice storm. We've really lost a lot of our canopy over this within the city over the last 10 years or so. So what we would be proposing is to require 1 tree for every 50 foot of frontage in single family and twin home forms. Currently, we require it as part of multifamily, but not in those 2 areas, single family or twin homes. You can see a subdivision on the left; those have trees. And this is an existing subdivision kind of in the suburban area of the city. with no trees at all. We did present this to the Home Builders Association. We got support from them to require this, and we think it could be a way moving forward to start building that canopy back. So, buffer yards, we wanted to add stipulation for some of these conditional use permits, specifically for on-sale alcohol. You know, we get a lot of those requests along existing corridors on 12th, Minnesota, 41st Street. We want the ability to, if needed, if they're adjacent to single family, to require them to have to put in the buffer yards as approval. So we wanted that option in there. And then the other one that we wanted to add is to still require parking lot screening for businesses across the street from single family or twin homes, even if it's an arterial. Currently they're exempt from doing that. We're running into some issues on like 57th in Minnesota. There's some businesses on the south side, and their parking lots would face those existing single-family homes on the north side of 57th Street. We still want to protect them from those cars pulling in there and shining lights in those existing houses. A couple other things. We wanted to change just the definition of the intersection and driveway safety zone to make it a little bit more clearer for homeowners and businesses. So we're calling it the intersection vision clearance area. That's a term that other cities use right now. One of the other things that we are changing also, as you can see this picture, large evergreen trees. We've been running into some of these in intersection safety zones that become dangerous. Well, currently the ordinance requires them to trim them up to 12 feet above the grade, which it looks a little weird when you have a huge trunk and then foliage on top. So we're looking to reduce that down to 8 feet. We feel you can still meet that intersection safety zone distance and still be able to provide safety as you're turning left or right on another street. Parking lots. One of the things we wanted to look at is any non-conforming parking lots constructed prior to 2014 to require a permit. Sometimes we have people replacing parking lots without getting permits. We really want to look at those ones that are non-conforming because that's our chance if we can, if there's the ability to get that landscaping, to get trees, and to make those parking lots look a little bit better. We wanted to clarify too what parking lots do not require permits. So we get people that do parking lots, seal coating, restriping, overlay, or minus surface work does not require permits, and they're not subject to the existing standards within our ordinance. So that's what we're doing now, but we just want to clarify so these parking lot contractors know what requires a permit and know what doesn't require a permit. Off-street parking requirements, this is one of the ones that we're pretty excited about. So as you know, some of our core areas of town are actually some more of the first-time home buyer houses. Now you can see a picture of one with a single stall garage. Currently, if that house comes in and wants to do another bedroom in the basement, put an egress window, they need 2 parking spaces, so they actually cannot do that. So we have to turn down permits for people to make their houses safer and to actually do bedrooms in the basement. And as we know, a lot of these first-time homebuyers, they have 2 kids and 2 parents. So we wanted to allow them the ability before 1983, if your house is built before 1983, you're not required to add those additional parking spaces. Once 1983 hits, that's where every house required 2 parking spaces, so they should already have that. One of the other things we wanted to add is we run into a lot of these on the Board of Adjustment, and Councilmember Neitzer probably remembers quite a bit of them. Single stall garages, you're only allowed to pave as wide as the garage out, which could be 12 feet wide. Well, you can't get 2 vehicles on a 12-foot wide driveway and still utilize the garage. So what we want to accommodate some of those houses that have 2 cars is to allow them to go the width of the garage or 20 feet, whichever is greater, but we still would like to maintain them that minimum of 3 feet from the property line. And this will allow them to get 2 vehicles off the street, and I think will help us in the long run with these first-time homebuyer houses that are really in our core area, and they just don't have the ability to add another garage stall on the side. So, excuse me, another parking one we ran into, so we have parking requirements for indoor rec facilities. Those are like your gyms, your climbing walls, large indoor uses. However, we didn't have any parking requirements for outdoor recreation facilities. You can see this is a picture of an outdoor volleyball venue, and we could only require parking as the size of that little tiny building in there, so they only were required like 4 parking spaces. Well, if you've ever been out there, there's cars that park up and down that street because there's no parking. So we want to change that and require 400 square feet for every outdoor private rec facility. And that would only be for the volleyball court. So in theory, this one would now require probably close to 20 spaces instead of 4. We feel like that's a way for them to provide that parking and not affect any of the other businesses around that area. And then our last one here, some sign exemptions. Currently, we don't allow you to put signage on construction fences around properties. Specifically in our downtown area, we feel like this could be a big advantage because you're not getting all those signs that are on the sidewalk. This would allow them to do that, to show what's happening in there and also advertise their business, but we would limit it to 40% of the area of the screening of the construction fence along each street frontage. So we wouldn't allow them to do all of it, but we would allow them to do some on there, and it would really help us with some of those existing signs. And you see, if you go to bigger cities, you see it all over downtowns of those where projects are coming, to give them an idea of that. So, and that's kind of our proposals for tonight.
All right, thanks, Jason. Anyone from the public here to speak to any of these items Jason presented? All right, Council, do you have any questions for Jason on these, Councilor Starr?
Yes, Jason, can you flip back to the, yep, that's it, the volleyball.
Okay.
So what would be the solution for those 20 spots? Because they've used the entire outdoor venue for their spots, so they would have to, in this situation, eliminate several courts that they use for the volleyball, or where would they find the extra parking?
This would be non-conforming, so they wouldn't have to provide the additional parking for this specific venue. We're really trying to get any new venues. This one should work itself out a little bit because the owners of this also are the owners on the west side of the lot of the indoor climbing wall. They're supposed to be adding some additional parking. That was kind of part of the deal with this one. So this one should, in the long run, work itself out in the end. But really, we're looking for this not to happen again, to be honest with you.
No, and that's what I mean, but in this situation, it would have been really difficult for them to find that additional parking in a similar type venue. It would have almost made this land not viable for this.
Well, they could have done a conditional use and actually put some additional parking on that climbing wall one to the west. But I get your point. But yeah, they would have to look at some larger lots, or they would have to provide some kind of additional parking there or reduce the courts.
Thank you.
Other questions for Jason on any of the changes presented here? Hearing none, and look for a motion to set a date of second reading for Tuesday, February 2, please.
So moved. Jensen.
Second.
All right, motion by Jensen, seconded by Nitzert on that. Is there discussion here, council? All right, hearing none, let's take a vote, please, Tom.
Council members Jensen,
Yes.
Kiley,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Brecky.
Yes.
All right, that item passes 7-0. Item 41, please.
Item 41, first reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, granting a non-exclusive natural gas franchise to Northwestern Corporation, doing business as Northwestern Energy, a Delaware corporation, to furnish and sell natural gas to the city and its inhabitants. Recommendation, set a date of second reading for Tuesday, February 2nd, 2021. Sponsors the mayor.
Good evening, Jeff.
Good evening, Jeff Eckhoff, Planning and Development Services. I'm standing in for Director Cotter tonight, who's not available for the meeting. There's a little history as this project progressed through the city. Director Cotter and I were in all the meetings together and worked together on the proposed recommendation that we bring to you tonight. So why I'm bringing it forward. In addition, Assistant City Attorney Paul Bankford is here, as well as Assistant City Engineer Kurt Peppel. They have some technical questions from their side, so we're available to answer those as well. Additionally, we have representatives from Northwestern and from Mid-American in the audience, and I'm sure that they'll have, if you have questions of them, and they'll probably have some comments as well. So just a little background on this, and I want to make it very clear that we're very pleased with Mid-American. They've been great partners, they're great corporate citizens, and they do a fantastic job for the city. So this is nothing about them or their performance. This is about the ability to compete in new areas of the city as we expand out. and not to limit competition. We've met with both entities a couple different times, and I have to commend Mid-American. They actually helped us kind of focus in on some of our due diligence questions we should be asking, things we should be thinking about as we consider this, expanding this, or this franchise to Northwestern. Had a lot of discussions about safety. We had a lot of discussions about the end cost to customers, and talked a little bit about the environment of gas and the margins that are there, and why they would or wouldn't build into each other's systems and what that would look like. And so I want to thank both parties for that, for their professionalism and for the approach that we've taken through this process. There were 10 different things that we thought about when Director Cotter and I made this recommendation to you. I'll just summarize some of them. First of all, we looked at the landscape of state law. That's where we started. And state law does not restrict competition in the natural gas arena like it does dividing territories on electrical utilities. It is wide open for competition. Both companies are investor-owned utilities, both regulated by the Public Utilities Commission. We felt that gave them a level playing field. As you know, in the electric world, you can get cooperatives, you get municipal-owned, you can get investor-owned. In this case, they're both investor-owned, they're both regulated by a PUC. Again, we felt that was a level playing field, and that the regulations of the PUC would help with not only rate protection for the customers, but also safety records of their employees and certainly the people in the community and their customers. The staff, we talked about where dual service was provided by two companies, and they talked about Kearney, Northwestern talked about Kearney, Nebraska. And so Assistant City Engineer Peppel called Kearney and had a long conversation with his counterparts down there, really focused on safety and how things worked down there, and when it was a leak, what happened. And in Kearney, it's Northwestern and it's Black Hills Energy are the two gas companies and franchises that are available down there. And really where we got back to them, hey, they're both pros, they both take care of their business. It's been a very good and amenable relationship, and they've had no problems with safety or anything else that would inhibit us or could be concerned about that. In fact, as we talked to our some of the contractors about the work in and around outside of Sioux Falls, do you see any problems where both gas companies are located? And they said no, there was no problem with that. They really had more concern about electric because of the way the lines run for electricity. Currently, Northwest and Mid-American jointly serve T and Harrisburg, and this request is really focused in the growth area south of Sioux Falls and where their territory really is. They actually have their lines, and they'll talk about that south of our current city limits, and what this allows them to do is when there are new developments that come up, it allows a developer to go to both companies and have them compete against each other, get the best rate that they can. And we just felt that ability to compete was a good thing. And last thing I would tell you is that those of you who are familiar, the margins or the profit margins in gas are very slim compared to electric and other utilities, which the economics alone would not motivate a company to build back into an established territory. And that was not Northwestern's wish. Their wish was to compete in new areas. And we believe in all the conversations we have with both utilities and the experiences we have is that the economics will prove that out. And that's how this will operate going forward. So we're granting them we're recommending to grant them a citywide franchise, and we would do the same, whatever we do with them, we will certainly use that as we go forward with Mid-American when they renew theirs, as we want to obviously be fair to both entities. Again, I want to compliment both utilities for the professionalism and the manner in which we worked together on this and for their input, and it was well taken, and I think it helped lead us to a good decision. And with that, I'll take any questions.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Anyone from the public who would like to speak to this item, come on up. Good evening.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
You bet.
Well, Jeff really did a fantastic job. I'm Bobby Schruppel with Northwestern Energy, the Vice President of Customer Care, Communications, and Human Resources, and I live actually just south of our office in southern Sioux Falls. So I'm going to try not to be overly redundant and keep my comments brief. I just want to touch briefly on Northwestern Energy, and Our intention is to seek a natural gas franchise in the city of Sioux Falls, as well as our commitment to safety and customer service. So first of all, for those of you that don't know much about us, we've been serving South Dakota, eastern South Dakota, since the 1920s. So we've been around for a century or more. We have we also serve gas in Nebraska and electricity and natural gas in the state of Montana, as well as Yellowstone Park in Wyoming. We have over 90,000 natural gas customers in South Dakota and Nebraska. 47,000 of those are in South Dakota alone. As was mentioned, we are regulated by the South Dakota Public Utilities Commission, and we're investor-owned, so we will not do anything that is not in the best interest of safety, our customers, and frankly, our shareholders. We have no intention of putting gas where gas is already served by Mid-American. We simply want the opportunity to compete in new developments. We are very active in the community of Sioux Falls. We have been at the 100,000 level commitment for the last 2 campaigns for Forward Sioux Falls. In 2016, we were the #1 donor for employers with 1 to 100 employees in Sioux Falls, and on an annual basis, we are consistently among the top donors per capita to the Sioux Falls United Sioux Falls Empire United Way Empire United Way, and we generally have 100% employee participation. We also have employees who are active on a number of boards in Sioux Falls, including the Humane Society, the Great Plains Zoo, Feeding South Dakota, Sioux Empire United Way, sorry, that's what I meant to say, Washington Pavilion, and I could go on. We have 3 executives located here in Sioux Falls, myself, including our Chief Financial Officer. The city of Sioux Falls is coming to Northwestern's territory regardless, which was mentioned by Jeff. You're not that far away from annexing into where we're already serving, so we'd like to just solidify this relationship, now, and we think it'll be a very good relationship. I'd like to close on a couple of things. We're very committed to safety. If you look at our service values, service is our values. The #1 service value is safety. It is a huge commitment, not only public, but employee safety, and we will never compromise that. I'd like to compliment Mid-American. They are a fantastic utility. Sioux Falls is incredibly lucky to have 2, what I consider some of the best utilities in the country wanting to do business here. We respect them. We will not be a bad corporate citizen. And then unlike phone or cable providers, once you get a gas franchise and you kind of put gas piping into a development, it isn't economically feasible for somebody else to come in and do something else. It's no different than the water service that the city of Sioux Falls provides. I mean, you could have an independent water company come in and try to pipe into neighborhoods, but it wouldn't make economic sense and isn't going to happen. So we're subject to all the same, federal and state rules and laws and regulations that any other investor-owned public utility is subject to. We take them very seriously. We have employees situated just south of Sioux Falls. We're very committed to maintaining a 30 to 45 minute response rate to any natural gas call. And, as we grow our customer base in and around Sioux Falls, we will evaluate our needs for employees, and we will add accordingly. So with that, and then the last thing is, just like Mid-American, we maintain 24-hour contact centers, one in here on South Dakota and in Butte, Montana. They work together, and of course, 24-hour emergency dispatching services. So with that, I would take any questions, or I will yield the floor. Thank you.
Thanks, Bobby. Anyone else here to speak on this item tonight? Please come forward. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. My name is Sam Wagner. I'm the Business and Community Development Manager representing Mid-American Energy. I appreciate the opportunity to provide some commentary here today on the Northwestern franchise proposal. First, I'd like to compliment and thank city staff for contacting Mid-American regarding Northwestern's proposed franchise. Our offer to the council, as it is with staff, is to serve as a resource in providing our collective expertise and experience in safely, reliably, and affordably operating a gas system right here in Sioux Falls. To that end, I want to share Mid-American's 2 chief concerns with multiple gas franchises within Sioux Falls. Those concerns can be summarized in 2 categories: safety and customer impact. Mid-American's #1 priority is the safety of our 60 employees and our over 70,000 customers in the Sioux Falls area. In our 70 years plus of providing natural gas service in Sioux Falls, Mid-American has made substantial investments in our gas system, both the pipes in the ground and in our professional employees, to ensure our full-time first responders, our construction employees, and our Army of techs and engineers that they have the tools and resources necessary to manage the system for every maintenance and reliability issue and respond to emergencies large and small, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Our dedicated employees work out of our service center right here in Sioux Falls, which we recently expanded and upgraded. As a result of this commitment to safety, 99.95% of our responses to gas leaks in Sioux Falls were less than 60 minutes in 2020, with an average response time of 21.6 minutes. With this commitment to safety in mind, we want to share our concerns about the potential presence of 2 or more gas systems operating in close proximity in Sioux Falls. Multiple gas franchises create difficulties in placing those facilities within the right-of-way and ensuring that they can be properly marked and identified. Consequently, excavation may be required to determine whose facilities were damaged should a hit occur. Unlike telecom and electric facilities, damaged gas facilities create a hazardous site until the company can make the area safe. Duplication of first response will increase response times and diminish safety, ultimately increasing complexity for both utilities. Secondly, we have concerns about how multiple franchises will impact Sioux Falls residents and customers. Currently, Mid-American is poised for growth with the infrastructure in place to accommodate unserved areas as future development occurs. We're already here. Our mindset and culture is that of customer first, and we step up to make sure customers have safe, reliable, and affordable service even when others have walked away. Gas utilities are rate regulated in South Dakota, and low rates are a direct result of operating efficiencies. Our responsible approach to gas extensions, along with our safe and efficient operations record, protects our customers and keeps rates low, which is why we rarely file rate cases in South Dakota, and our typical residential rates are nearly 9% lower than that of other utilities. It is our responsibility to you and to our customers to not put our safety at risk by introducing operational complexities that are created by multiple franchises. We appreciate the Council's consideration of the consequences that multiple gas franchises create when operating within Sioux Falls. So thank you. Our leadership team is here tonight to answer any questions you might have, whether it be tonight or at any time you'd like to ask them. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. Anyone else here to speak on this item tonight? All right, we'll move into any questions. Council, you have any questions for Jeff or either for representatives from Northwestern or Mid-American? Councilor Neitzer, I'll start with you.
Not sure who to direct the questions to, so I'll throw them out and we'll see. So the way the current incumbent provider, Mid-American's franchise works, every time that we annex an area and it becomes corporate limits of Sioux Falls, is it just that automatically mean they have the exclusive right to serve that area of land?
Paul, well, you want to answer that one? Assistant City Attorney Paul Bangford.
Paul Bangford, Assistant City Attorney. We have a non-exclusive agreement with Mid-American currently, which is a 20-year agreement that it's approximately 19 years into. No other company has an agreement with us, so it is correct that it would be Mid-American. Northwestern is asking that they also have a non-exclusive agreement so that they're allowed to come here, but currently the only company that has a non-exclusive agreement with us is Mid-American. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. Just out of curiosity, do you know what would happen if we grew so far south and then we annexed a piece of land and that landowner already had Northwestern? Do they have to switch or are they good?
Sure. Under the proposal that is before you, section 1.08 deals with what do you do if there's multiple lines or multiple companies that want to go in. And if there is already a line there and another company wants to come in, then that's something that the city has the right to deny or approve based upon what the situation is. So that's a fluid situation that under the proposal, section 1.08 would address that, but companies aren't allowed to put multiple lines in unless approved by the city and approved by the right-of-way permitting process.
And then finally, one route you could have gone was to draw boundaries. Was that discussed? And if not, why did you not go that route if it was discussed?
If you're asking if it would be legal to draw boundaries, it would. That's not the approach that was taken in this agreement, but it wouldn't be illegal to approach it from that standpoint.
Would that require an amendment or a re-upping, or, because I think maybe in the Mid-American's going to have to be a new agreement's going to have to come forward in the next few years anyway, or?
Mid-American, I think that their agreement was approved in May of 2002 and is a 20-year agreement, so that will be coming up, will be worked on this year and into the early part of 2022, correct. There'd be nothing illegal about doing that. I don't know how the companies would feel about being in different districts, but that's certainly not the approach that's before you, Counselor.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily advocating one or the other, but I could envision a scenario where it might be cleaner, because then it's very clear you have one, whereas I kind of think about growth south, would you end up with a case where we're doing this leapfrog deal where you have Mid-American and subdivision 1, the next one maybe it's Northwestern, and you have this, and I could see as capital investment goes, you might have a little more confidence if you knew this was your area to be putting lines in ahead of time versus, I guess it might be harder to project. Do I make this investment? Because I don't even know if I'm going to get a subdivision because I'm competing for everyone.
I do think that is one situation that was looked at when this was addressed, but not ultimately what was what is before you.
And Jeff, you want to speak to that too, please? Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, Paul would not have been a part of that discussion. That was when Assistant Attorney Bolg was still here. So we did have that discussion. And initially we thought about going down that path, and as we thought through it, we thought about if the spirit is, if we're talking about competition, right? Whenever you draw a boundary, it always protects one side and a disadvantage to the other. And so really what you then end up is not allowing Mid-American to go south and compete because you have that boundary, and then you end up protecting it, inadvertently protecting Northwestern as well. So we just felt that to leave it wide open and then keeping track of how those boundaries would be and if they ever moved in amendments. So that was the discussion we had, so we did consider it, yes.
I am a little, I'm sorry if you, one last follow-up. I'm not entirely clear in this arena necessarily how quote-unquote, how competition would play out considering that you've got rates that are, have to be approved by the PUC, and you can't come as a gas company and say, I'm going to give you a 3-month promo offer where you only have to spend $20 on your gas. You can't do that. So I'm not sure, I guess, I don't know exactly how it works in the subdivision when a developer's, if they're both going to be going to each and one's going to say, hey, I'll put in the gas lines for free, and the other, I don't know what they charge right now, if anything. So
that would be a question I think I'll let Northwestern answer.
Okay.
Does a rep from Northwestern want to answer that question? No one wants to, but I know. I know the feeling. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. I guess I'm it. My name is Pam Bonrud. I'm the Director of Government and Regulatory Affairs for Northwestern Energy. I work out of our Sioux Falls office. The way that we would compete is, you're correct in that the rates that we charge that customers are charged to receive gas are approved and set by the Public Utilities Commission. Where the competition would come through is on how well can we sharpen our pencils when we're putting the infrastructure in place. And how well can we control the costs of materials, labor, those kinds of costs up front. So that would be a benefit with that pass through at that point to the developer and customers as they look at buying those lots.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Pam. Any other questions for representatives from either company or city representative? Councilor Starr, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I want to thank both Mid-American and Northwestern. Prior to last week, I didn't know anything about this, and they both did a nice job of sitting down with me and explaining and really briefing me of the issue on both sides. And so I really appreciate the time that was taken to really introduce the subject and make me as much of an expert as I can be in a couple of hour meetings. So I really appreciate both sides taking the time to inform me. My question is, and I'm not sure who I'm going to ask this to, but we talked about that there's a very low margin in gas. So if you take an existing well-regulated monopoly and you try to kind of add in competition, I want to make sure that there's enough margin to take care of existing customers as they're in Sioux Falls before you take the cream off of the top in the new areas of town, because that's going to be, when you work in a greenfield, it's a whole lot easier. Everything's flat and straight, and a lot of those issues are taken out. So I don't know if Director Eckhoff, you want to take a swing at that, or what assures me that there's enough margin for everybody to continue and to do the maintenance? I mean, we spent a lot of time lately talking about not taking care of things and doing the maintenance on existing infrastructure.
So I'm going to take a swing at it, and then I'm going to let each utility speak for themselves, because I would not want to do that. Gas is different than electricity. So electricity, you will see that happen where sometimes they will build back in and cherry pick large, usually industrial projects or like a hospital, or somebody that has enough of a load and with a profit that they can afford to do that, to compete on that. In fact, South Dakota law allows large load utilities to compete as well if it's over 2 megabytes of a load. So that happens in that world. In the gas world, I think those margins, and it's maybe because of competition, I'll let the utility speak for that. But with the PUC, they look at, cost of service, they look at maintenance, they look at all those types of things. But as far as the margin goes and how that affects them and affects their maintenance, I'll let them speak to that.
Thank you.
Anybody from Northwestern or Mid-America want to speak to that point?
Okay, so, Bobby. Again, I'm still Bobby. So on the gas side, I just want to make a couple of comments on why the margins are lower on the gas side. A typical electric utility owns the entire vertical chain, okay? So we own our power plants, we own the transmission lines, we own the distribution lines, which means we make a profit on every single element of that model, okay? We are a local distribution company. We only own the local distribution lines, which are really the lines that kind of run, around the cities and into the residential home or to the business. We don't own the major pipelines that are bringing the gas into the state of South Dakota, and we don't own the gas production fields. Okay, so if we were to own that entire vertical food chain, then the margins would be much higher. And in fact, in Montana, we do own gas transmission systems, and we do own our own gas production fields. And so, frankly, our profit is higher in a model like that. And I think the same would be true for Mid-American as an electric company. They own their own power plants, they own their own transmission system, and they own their own distribution system. So that's really, I think, why the margins are lower. We don't make any money whatsoever on the gas supply. We buy it as cheaply as we can on the market, and it goes to our customers for exactly what we paid for. There is no markup. As far as the 2 megawatt load on the electric side that was mentioned, that is true, but that is also regulated by the Public Utilities Commission, and they will make a determination. We are not allowed to go in and seek a 2 megawatt or larger load if we cannot prove that we can serve that load economically without harming our other customers. And the final point that I'll make is every single analysis that we do, if we're going to go into a new development, we have to do that analysis against how our regulators are going to look at that. And we know that if we cannot prove that our other customers were held harmless, they will not allow it to go into rates, and it will go on the back of our shareholders, which means we have no incentive to do that whatsoever. And so I just would leave you with that thought process, which is, we're not going to make bad financial decisions. Thank you.
Thanks, Bobby. Anyone from Mid-American want to speak to that, or sure can?
Sam Wagner again, and I will take a stab at the competition argument, because this you kind of start to get down into the weeds here, but I think it bears a bit of discussion here. I think of it in terms of gas stations. You put 2 gas stations across the street from each other, and they drop prices to compete with the other one. Somebody's going to go across the street because the gas is a cent cheaper than we've seen that play out. In the gas utility world, once you put those pipes in the ground and you hook those pipes up to a subdivision, to a business, to an industry, there is no competition at that point. Those pipes aren't going anywhere. So our concern on having multiple systems is if you get somebody that goes in, say a subdivision, and say we're already there, because we are in that situation where we have pipes in the ground ready to serve a subdivision, but we won't have it in the subdivision yet because it hasn't been developed yet. So what we do is we use a tool called a 3-year net revenue credit, where we work with the developer of that subdivision, and the same goes for industrial developments as well, where we have to extend gas. We're in the same boat really as Northwestern. We're a distribution company. We take those 3-year net revenues, we take the first 3 years of net revenues generated by this new project or by the subdivision, and we can aggregate those and use those as a credit to buy down the upfront costs to extend that gas into that subdivision. If the 3-year net revenue credit is less than the cost to extend, then that cost falls onto the developer to pay the difference. And if it's less, then we're all good. So that approach for us has proven to be very effective. We do it here in South Dakota. We also do it in Iowa, whereby the rest of our rate-paying customers aren't on the hook in any way, shape, or form for that new development. And so there is no real way, within the way that we approach our extension policies, that a residence on the other side of Sioux Falls is going to be on the hook for in any way, shape, or form for a gas extension into a new subdivision or into a new industry. So if we're in a position where you have multiple franchises, multiple operators kind of playing for that same subdivision, we might have an agreement with one. We have another pipe that's in the way. How do you get across there? We really can't, and do so safely. We have too many facilities within right-of-way in that case, and we've started to see that play out a little bit in some other areas. So that's our chief concern there, is that the competition argument is a little bit more complicated, really, than the typical gas station. The gas stations that are across the street from each other. And we do protect our customers in all of our extension policies. Hopefully the begins to address the question without getting too deep.
Well, thanks, Sam.
Thank you.
That'll work for now. Thank you.
Other questions? Councilor Sale and then Councilor Selberg.
Yes, I have one question for both of the utilities and a couple then for staff. For the utilities, when we talk about rates, I believe you sell natural gas cubic feet, is that correct? Here's what I'm asking. How much per cubic feet is your gas, and how much are you going to sell it to our consumers for? So when it comes down to rates, I want to know what your price is. We talked about gas stations. It's $2.31. You can go across the street to get it at $2.25. So my question to both of you, what is the cost of your gas?
So I apologize, I don't have the actual cost right now today, but what I would say is the actual natural gas supply, which would be akin to the liquid that comes out of the pump and goes into your car, we pass that on, and that is reviewed by the commission. All we do is recover whatever it costs us to buy that. We don't make any money on that. So, and we have, strategies for layering gas in, we have storage abilities and all of that, and if you were in, we could certainly set up a separate meeting to talk about that's very complicated, but we do our best to keep the prices as low as we can, take advantage of short-term low-price markets, but also plan for longer term, and so it's a combination thereof, going for ultimately price stability. Where we make our money is on delivering that gas through the pipes that come to your home. That's all we make our money on. And Mid-American follows the same model in South Dakota. We don't have any profit on the actual gas.
I appreciate your answer. So I think what I will do is I will provide both of you my natural gas bill, and then in a couple of weeks when we come back, then I'd like to see what your rate's going to be to provide the same amount of gas for both. My house isn't going anywhere, and I'm using the same amount of gas. I want to know what it is from each of the utilities here. Because I'm trying to think of the consumer that's out there in a new subdivision. And my thinking is we have a monopoly today. If somebody wants to bust in on that monopoly, it must be because there's profit there. So I will provide you my gas bill, and then in a couple of weeks we can talk about it when we come back up here. I appreciate that. For the staff, I have two questions. Maybe, I'm down to one now. The model. Certainly this is not unique in the United States to have competing utilities in the same community. Did you look, and I don't know who wants to answer, but where did you look to see what model works, what model doesn't work? What pitfalls have you kept the council out of in this potential agreement, and what are the benefits?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Kurt Peppel, Assistant City Engineer. We did, early on, I reached out to Kearney, Nebraska, talked to their city attorney and their director of utilities that oversees I got more details from their director of utilities, more on the permitting, the location, how the two companies there in Kearney get along. They don't have areas spelled out. They can go anywhere in the city, the two companies, Northwestern and Black Hills. In general, they get along very well. They're both very professional. They've had little to absolutely no issues with them getting along, and they do not have, as Paul referenced, Section 108, where we kind of talk about multiple gas lines in a right-of-way. They don't regulate that in Kearney. Similar to what we would do, if a permit request came in, we would look at that application and then make a decision based on the information that they provide, whether or not it makes sense to have an additional gas line in that right-of-way. I don't know if that answered your questions, but Kearney was the only one that we reached out to that had multiple providers. They are in close proximity to us, so it made sense.
Okay, thank you. I just have one more point I'm going to make, that I did reach out to the fire marshal, Dean Lanier, and I asked him if he could run some numbers, and I'm going to continue to look into these as we go forward. From January 1st, 2018 to December 31st, 2021, gas leaks responded to by the fire department was 214. So that's a 3-year thing. Now, a gas leak, and I've responded to these, could be classified just because somebody didn't light their stove right and they got it figured out and they smelled gas. But I also have sat hours on a fire truck as some contractor inadvertently would rupture a gas line, and I will say that the professionalism of the gas company at that time was beyond what I could ask for. They've done a great job. So as we go forward, I'll be investigating with the fire department, the safety part of it, and I will circle back to the council with the numbers that I'm going to get from the utilities on a gas bill.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Selberg, you want the floor?
Yeah, I don't know. This has been a fascinating subject for the last couple of weeks. I've sure learned a lot. I thought I knew a little bit about free market and competition. Quite frankly, this conversation has me a little baffled. Almost has me like, anyway, the profit thing, I think we've hit on it. We'll keep looking into that part. Maybe Director Eckhoff, my question would be to you. We hear a lot about the safety concerns and the service issues that might come up with this. I guess I'm confident in the competence and professionalism of both these companies, where I would think that they would work out these issues as we move forward, especially after talking to both of them. But I keep hearing this kind of hammered from one side or the other. Is this something that's been a big issue or concern with both you and Director Cotter as these conversations have gone on?
Yeah, that's really been the center of a lot of discussion, of course, is on safety. I don't know where I put all my books back there. There was a memo sent out, I think, to you guys. I can't remember the number of communities that Northwestern serves in South Dakota, but it's pretty much all the way up and down the James River Valley, Aberdeen, and some of the larger communities. And so it's not a company that's new to South Dakota. It's not a company that we don't know. It's not a company that's without we believe is a good reputation in the state for safety and service to their customers, so.
Yeah, so it's just, yeah, I guess I listened to it, and obviously it should be a concern. I appreciate that. I guess I'm thinking that that's something that they'll both get over. So am I thinking on the right track there where you're along the same lines, you and Director Cotter? Well, that should probably work itself out,
Yes.
for lack of a better term.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Counselors, other questions? Counselor Neitzer, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to follow up. And interestingly, just looking at my bill, there's a gas supply charge, which I'm assuming there's no profit margin, then there's a delivery. So where there's margin, okay. So this, I'm going to leave this to either of the gas companies to answer this if they would like, but if you had to have, and I'll say if you have to have two providers, because one may prefer that there remains one provider, but if we're going to go with two providers, would you prefer that there was hard boundaries drawn versus having a wide open field here? And why is your preference one way or the other? That would be my question. Versus this model.
Is that to both?
Yep, and that's addressed to both if they'd like to answer.
Sorry, I feel like I'm dominating time. The answer would be no, and I'll give you some rationale. I think it was back in the 70s, the state of South Dakota divided up the electric territories, and there is no franchise. So we have an exclusive right to serve what we serve. We talked about the 2 megawatt exception, okay, and we do deal with that on occasion with, primarily in our case, the cooperatives, but not a lot. On the gas side, because that's not how the state law works, and we have franchises and they get renewed, every 10, 20, 30 years, depending on the franchise agreement. The concern that I would have in divvying up is that with the growth rate in Sioux Falls, I don't know how Sioux Falls can divvy up land that it hasn't annexed, that we're already serving gas in, south and southeast and down towards the Iowa border. And so, could Sioux Falls divvy up the territory within the city limits that's already here? It certainly could, and I guess I would offer up that Northwestern doesn't really have any direct plans to serve existing Sioux Falls limits where Mid-American is already serving. We're simply asking for the opportunity to have a fair shot at the growth, knowing that it is coming into our service territory. I mean, we serve Baker Crossing. You're not far away. We serve the new Harrisburg School down there. You're only about a half a mile to a mile from where I live in the Prairie Hill, or we are only about a half a mile to a mile from where I live in the Prairie Hills, Auburn Hills area. So I just, I hope that you will take us at face value when we say we are a good corporate citizen and we do not intend to do anything but be a good corporate citizen.
Yeah, and I take I have every trust that you will and that you're a good provider, and I take you at your word that you're not interested in coming in, if only just because the economics are probably, put in all this infrastructure with no guarantee people are going to switch to you. But I'm talking like as we move south, it would seem like on its face, like if I told you I'm going to give you everything from this street south, and you would have certainty that you have all of it going south, for example, where, you're already there in many places. Would that be a benefit to the consumer if because then you would know what you have going south? Right now, I'm thinking of this domino effect where you're not going to know what subdivisions you're going to win. It's going to be a bit of a lottery as we move southbound, I guess. And that's what I'm kind of wondering is, would it have an almost perverse effect where it may move prices up, not down, because there's less certainty? I don't know.
Well, I would argue it won't move prices up because we can't make a bad decision only for the sake of competition to increase prices and go in and justify that to our regulators. That's not going to happen. I might invite Brad Andy up here. He's our operation manager for the Southern Division to talk a little bit more about how this actually works. But I think we would probably have to come back and huddle a little bit more internally on this concept. But I just go back to it's not really how the South Dakota law works, and I'm not sure how Sioux Falls could divvy up service territory that isn't part of the city of Sioux Falls yet and knowing that we're the development and our decisions to put natural gas in, which at this point in time, you know, down south of us are controlled by the cities of T and Harrisburg and the counties. That is ahead of, in some instances, is happening before Sioux Falls even really has any jurisdiction over that land. So I'm not a lawyer. I'm probably getting in trouble by our chief legal counsel. I'm getting, so I reserve the right to be corrected, and I would offer Fred when Andy wants to make any comments, because he's actually really on the front line, you know, putting the gas service in where we've been putting it in. Thank you.
Sure, thanks. And to be clear, we'd have no jurisdiction over any area not annexed, but you could simply say any incorporated area in the city of Sioux Falls going forward south of 85th Street is Northwestern's territory. I'm just as an idea. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Brad Winandy. I'm the division manager for Northwestern Energy. The area that we're discussing tonight is within my area of responsibility, but very similar to how our mid-am counterparts described that process, working with evaluating, you know, costs to run into a subdivision. For instance, we follow a very similar model and work with the local developers to understand what their needs are, what the loads are going to be, how many lots, you know, may be developed over the course of time or in a given period of time. So again, working that financial model to to the best outcome that we can. And again, if those calculations come out that in the long term it looks like it's a revenue break even or better, we would not charge the developer for constructing into that development. But on the other hand, just like with Mid-American, if those costs exceed what we expect to get in return, those would indeed have to be some sort of payment or contribution from the developer for those. So does that answer the question?
Yes, that helps. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And I give Mid-American the same chance to speak to that if you wish. I don't know if you're the prosecution or defense here. I'm just calling on both sides each time, so.
I don't think either. I'm Mark Hogue, we're from Mid-American Energy. I think to answer the hard line question, we'd have a fairly similar answer as Northwestern does there. It kind of depends as to whether or not one of those would be beneficial or not, right? So if, to your point, okay, you know exactly where you're going to go. One thing you don't know is how everything's going to be platted up until that point. So whose facilities are going to be positioned in a position that's easy enough to go in there when you have two different providers. So for example, you know, as the city grows out, in general, we've got stubs sitting to go into every next piece of street that goes there. So we'd be sitting fine if you end up with a dividing line someplace where somebody is not necessarily the best poised to serve it. The hard line method there could cause some of the problems we're trying to avoid. So long answer is it depends as how the growth goes as to what would be the best solution to that situation.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Other questions or discussion? I'll go to Councilor Kiley on the phone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My questions are for Mr. Wagner or a rep with Mid-American Energy. Maybe they would like to hear the question before they decide who answers them. But first of all, I'd just like to say that as a Mid-American customer, you know, I certainly enjoy the services that I have received over my lifetime of living in Sioux Falls. My furnace operates well. My range always works when we turn it on. And my gas fireplace even works when my electric utility company has failed me. So it's not about service. And I think there's probably no question that both companies in this situation are good providers. But I do have a question for somebody with Mid-American. We heard about Kearney, Nebraska, where there's two providers. Are there communities or places where you currently compete with another natural gas provider? And how has that worked in your opinion?
Thank you, Councilor. I'll ask Sam to come up and address that. Sam, go ahead.
Thank you, Councilman. So this is Sam Wagner, Councilman. So we scratched our heads honestly, to look around our service area in South Dakota as well as Iowa and Nebraska and Illinois to see if we could find a similar situation with, you know, competing or multiple gas systems within a given city limits. And up until recently, I would say that no, we don't. This is really quite outside the norm for us, largely because the costs to come in and begin to serve a community that is already served are typically rather cost prohibitive to be able to do so. So it's not a situation that has a lot of regulatory history behind it. So to your question, Mr. Neitzer, about you know, service areas or, you know, defined boundaries or something like that, typically that's done through the PUC or the IUB in Iowa, et cetera, as a state, you know, as a statewide sort of setting of the playing field. You know, within the gas world, typically those costs are sort of naturally cost prohibitive to kind of render that sort of regulation typically unnecessary because the economics just don't bear it out. So the short answer to your question is no, we really don't have any other situations across our service area up until recently in Harrisburg and T.
All right. Thank you, Sam. Councilor Kiley, you have other questions?
I still have, yes. And Sam, so up until recently, can you address how it's worked in Harrisburg and T? Because those were two that I was aware of, and I was not sure if there were others. So tell me, how recent is that, and how has it worked to date?
Yeah, thanks for the question. It is quite early. The Harrisburg and T franchises with Northwestern, they would be better equipped to tell you exactly what those dates were, but I believe just in the last couple of years for each one of those. I think Harrisburg was the more recent of the two, if memory serves. So it's a little bit early. However, we have seen, I believe in Harrisburg, already one sort of situation where we have some gas facilities in some right-of-way and a development agreement into a subdivision across the street, and we have somebody else's gas line in between. So that's exactly the type of situation that we are trying to avoid, and I think we've laid out our argument for why that's a bad idea to be put, you know, to be at risk in that situation. So beyond that, I don't have a ton of examples to share with you because it is still rather early, but some of the early experiences that we've had thus far do give us some cause for concern.
Thanks, Sam.
Did a safety issue result from that situation where you had somebody else's gas line between yours?
I wouldn't characterize
and the
it
customer?
as. Yeah, I'm sorry, Councilman. I wouldn't necessarily at this point consider that a safety issue, but
okay.
But it is a situation that we're monitoring that could evolve into one.
Can you tell me which provider was in Harrisburg first, or which provider was in T first?
I believe we were, sir. Mid-American.
Okay. And then my last question here, have there been any instances where there were communities that were already serviced by another gas provider where Mid-American petitioned to move into that community?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite follow the question, sir. Could you repeat that for me?
Okay, I'll repeat it. So have there, and I just want to be abundantly clear here. So have there been instances where there were communities that were already serviced by another natural gas provider other than Mid-American, where Mid-American petitioned to move into that community?
I'm looking to my experts in the back of the room, Councilman, and we're all saying no.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate your answers.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Councilor. Are there other discussions or questions? Councilor Starr, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess one more for Director Eckhoff, if I could. I guess I'll talk while you're heading to the podium, but My initial question is, have we talked to the Home Builders Association or developers? My initial impression by them not being here tonight, it's not a concern. I guess from the beginning, when I started my discussions with both groups, my thing was, we're in a housing crisis. And anything that we do to add costs or save costs for developers and home builders is huge to our community. And so I'm trying to weigh that. First, did you have a chance to talk with either home builders or developers that how this would affect them? And then overall, would this add or subtract or be neutral to housing as we move forward?
I know that Director Cotter had talked to one of the contractors with regards to, and I mentioned that. Beyond that, Kurt, are you aware of conversations he had? No. I know we didn't talk to the home builders, I don't think. No.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yep. Other questions tonight, council? All right. I'd look for a motion. We're going to look for a motion instead of date a second reading, so we'll be able to have more conversation on this. So I want to just be clear with everyone that we will be revisiting this at second reading. So that would be a motion to set a date a second reading for Tuesday, February 2.
Move approval. Second, Jensen.
All right, motion by Selberg, seconded by Jensen on that. All right, now we'll move into any discussion on the council on this, if there is any. All right, hearing none, let's take a vote, please, Tom.
Council members Jensen,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Brecky.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Next item, please.
Item 42, a resolution advising and giving consent to the appointment of members to certain citizen boards. Sponsors the mayor, those being Wes Engbers, Building Board of Appeals, David Dandar, Ann Haber, Darrell Schmidt to the Business Improvement District Board, Main Street, and Sean Garney, Public Transit Advisory Board.
All right, anyone from the public who would like to speak to this item tonight? All right, councilors, do you have any questions on these, or look for a motion to approve these folks?
Move approval. Jensen.
Move to approve.
All right, motion by Jensen, seconded by Councilor Kiley to approve these items. Any discussion here? All right, let's take a vote, please.
Council members Jensen,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Brecky.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Next item, please.
Item 43, notice of transfer of appropriations on the memorandum dated December 31st, 2020. And item 44, notice of transfer of appropriations on the memorandum dated January 8th, 2021.
All right, council, any new business tonight to bring forward? If not, next up is public input. We're at our general public input portion of our agenda. As a reminder, input during this portion will last no more than 3 minutes per person. And at this time, the public is welcome to speak on any topic that does not appear earlier on the regular agenda. And at this time, I'd like to invite anyone forward for general public input. Good evening, sir.
Hello, councilors. Brett Cruz, Sioux Falls. One thing is this virus thing. We should stop wearing, like, not all of us, but just some of us stop wearing masks to help get rid of the virus. Whatever. And then your 8-year plan. There is no more 8-year plan, is there, Paul? You don't have an 8-year plan anymore. At the beginning of the year, you said you had an 8-year plan that was going to make it great for Sioux Falls. And now you don't have an 8-year plan anymore? I was just saying. And it's pretty much all about money, so if you didn't have an 8-year plan, and Dan Sanford just said, oh, I'll give you money, you still be quiet or whatever, just do what I do and say what I say at the city council office or whatever, and just push this through or whatever. All right, that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you. Anyone else for general public input tonight?
Greetings. I'm David Zokaitis, and I'm here to talk to you tonight about COVID as an emergency. Well, first of all, for a little bit of background, we should talk about some of the impacts of COVID. And it's been pretty rough on people. We've got a lot of infections and sickness, a lot of mental health problems in the country, and really quite a lot of economic impact also. In terms of emotional impact, you should read some of these headlines that I found in the Argus Leader, especially the one at the end. Dwindling supplies and a nurse who lost hope. Doesn't sound good for us whatsoever. Curiously enough, though, there are people making money off of this. There's an article there from inthisetimes.com and talking about people who have money making a whole lot of money off of this. Not what we want to hear. And the Trump administration hasn't been very good about directing money to small businesses that need it. Turns out it went to bigger businesses instead. Also, in terms of background, we should define emergency as an immediate short-term problem, like a house that's burning. If you don't take care of that quick, you're in trouble. But if you look at the timeline for COVID, it's been going on and on and on. So far, it's about a year-long event. It doesn't usually count as an emergency if it goes on for a year. Here's a plot of flu infections. You can see that there is a peak around this time of year. That's 9 years worth of data all smashed together. And that's the general response of infections over time. A different infection, disease, a different location, but it's the same pattern. Big winter peak, and then it's gone. So here's the same kind of data, just spread out so you can see that you've got this wavy motion, and that winter peak is pronounced, and the summer valley is also pronounced. So now we take a look at COVID. Here's data from the South Dakota Department of Health, and you can see it's got the same kind of pattern. The peak is in the middle of winter, and then it's gone. And it's heading down towards zero pretty quick here. So because the peak of infections is nearly gone and the valley is coming, doesn't look like an emergency to me anymore, and we should go back to treating things conventionally and go back to conventional laws, and not have everything as an emergency. And of course, got to smile about something. There's some beautiful lights at the park. And good evening.
Thank you, David. Anyone else for general public input tonight? Good evening.
Tim Stanga. I had a gentleman ask me to come in and talk for him because, one, he doesn't want to stay here as late as we put it, and he isn't very good at talking to people. He sent me a photo of the mayor on his China trip. He wants me to remind the people of South Dakota and Sioux Falls where this COVID-19 came from. I can remember the mayor stating that the Chinese would be great partners for Sioux Falls to be able to do business with. This gentleman said, the last person that you want to get in bed with is the Chinese people. The Chinese people are corrupt. They want to take over the United States, and they don't want this United States to have any power. So why would you want to get in bed with the Chinese unless you got something that you're going to get out of it? This gentleman wanted to find out who paid for the trip to China. Well, if you look at the picture, you can pretty much know who paid for it. Is China somebody that we really want to get in bed with? People of Sioux Falls, what we should be doing is everybody that has taken a loss from COVID-19, put a bill together and send it to the mayor's office. Then the mayor, when he gets all the bills together, he can tally it up He can go to his friends in China, the ones that are great people to work with, and ask if he can cut a check. How much you want to bet me these people, one, they're not going to cut you a check, and two, they could give hide nor hair about the people of the United States and what they did and how they've destroyed the American dream. We have to realize that who are we going to get in bed with? Maybe you should think about the people that are in Sioux Falls trying to keep their businesses together and to be able to promote businesses within Sioux Falls that can compete with China and that could go outside of Sioux Falls and South Dakota, like Chicago, New York, and sell products to them versus going to China. Thank you.
Anyone else tonight? Come on up.
Mike.
Hi, Mike.
I've been thinking about, I don't know how to work this. I've been thinking about something that we could be, I'd like to see the council talk about this more often. What can we do with the city council through this whole pandemic crisis? I think we should be doing something for the families of Sioux Falls, the kids of Sioux Falls. The mayor likes to do stuff with the kids. And I thought, why don't we start looking at our sister city, the South, Sioux City? Look what they did with their old Coliseum. And could we do something like that with the Sioux Falls Arena? And this is kind of some of the things I talked to the city, the park manager of the Sioux City. This is kind of some of the stuff they did with their old Coliseum. They kind of tied it in with the Tyson Center, and they use, with historic preservation, they use TIF dollars to kind of help pay for it. And that's kind of some of the things that, it's kind of interesting with some of the things they did, what they did with that one. Public meetings, we could create office space for the Stampede, maybe form little office space for the event center staff. So we can do something like that we can host family events, indoor playground, maybe with one of the upper decks we can have, kind of some of the things I thought of. You can have like an indoor movie theater for the kids, maybe a daycare center or something, stuff to do for family stuff. So I kind of thought, why not do something like this with Sioux Falls? It can generate money for like the parks, and we can put it within the Parks and Recreation Department, generate some revenue for the Parks Department, and be something cool. We can have an indoor park recreation area for the winter time, So why don't we do something like that for our community? And at the same time, we don't have to tear down the arena, or we can save the arena. If that new park, if they're going to really build a new baseball park in the north, we can sometime in the future tear down the ballpark in our place. There's a spot where you can put a parking ramp, maybe put a couple retail development on that south end of the parking lot, and make a really nice sports and family recreational area. So it's just something I thought, and on a positive note, something we can think about for the Sioux Falls Arena. I thought it fit right in with the mayor. Well, you like to do stuff with the kids, and that would be something perfect for the arena. So just something to think about. So thank you.
All right, thanks, Mike. Anyone else for public input tonight?
Sioux Falls. I have taken up with the police multiple times, but we're going to be in debate here. Willie Charles Whitman has trial on February the 8th in courtroom 5C in front of Judge Zale. And I asked the state attorney's office to ask for 15 to 20 years. There's a bunch of holes in this case. So I'm not going to get into details until after the case is over and then told the police. It's going to look very toxic on them, but it is what it is. I'm going to take this case and put it to another case of a licensed massage therapist that has been doing illegal massaging with illegal immigrants for 8 years and has no arrest been made. I will state this. During the trial, if it does go to trial, we have a prostitute that has come forward to say that they needed so much money to purchase a massage parlor, which this massage parlor is a massage therapist that has been doing illegal activity for 8 years. Okay, so the massage parlor I have done told you about on 41st, and right there at 5300 South, I think it's South Marion Road. This has been in the making for a lot of years. So I urge everybody to come and listen to this testimony. The police department doesn't believe that there's ties. I say, yes, it is, and I have the evidence to prove it, because I'm the one that gave the police the evidence. The recorded conversations that we have, the evidence that the massage parlor that has been doing illegal activity for 8 years had said in a telephone conversation that she admitted to human trafficking by labor. Still no arrest has been made. I'm going to challenge Lieutenant Hinkle, and I'm challenging Officer McClure on this issue, and it's probably going to make the news. I have told McIntyre that somewhere in the police department, evidence is being lost. We have businesses that have provided evidence to the police department. Still, this massage person that is an illegal massage therapist has not been taken down. Mr. Whitman has been a part of this illegal massage business with this massage therapist. So after the trial is over, I'm going to piece it together. And I ask after we do this that the police needs to take this kind of stuff seriously with practicing without massages and working against rules and regulations of the city.
All right, thank you. Anyone else for general public input? All right, look for a motion to adjourn tonight.
So moved, Jensen.
Second.
All right, motion by Jensen, seconded by Neitzer. Roll call on that.
Council members Jensen,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Neitzer,
Yes.
Selberg, Sale,
Yes.
Carr, Brecky.
That's